Join me on this spiritual journey through one of the most compelling stories in the Bible, the life of Moses, a man whose extraordinary journey from a hidden infant to becoming God's chosen leader would forever change the course of history. Welcome to God's Bible Bread Devotionals. Moses' story begins during a dark time for the Israelites in ancient Egypt. Pharaoh, fearing the growing Hebrew population, ordered all newborn Hebrew boys to be thrown into the Nile River. But one mother, Jochebed, refused to let her son die. She crafted a waterproof basket from reeds, placed her 3-month-old baby inside, and set him afloat on the Nile, trusting in God's providence. In a divine twist of fate, Pharaoh's daughter discovered the basket while bathing in the river. Moved by compassion, she adopted the child, naming him Moses, meaning drawn from the water. Through God's intricate plan, Moses' sister Miriam, who had been watching nearby, suggested a Hebrew nurse, their own mother, to care for the baby. Thus, Moses grew up straddling two worlds, raised as an Egyptian prince while maintaining his Hebrew heritage. As Moses matured into adulthood, he became increasingly aware of the suffering of his people. One day, witnessing an Egyptian overseer beating a Hebrew slave, Moses' anger overtook him, and he killed the Egyptian. When word of this deed spread, Moses fled into the wilderness of Midian, leaving behind his privileged life in Pharaoh's court. In Midian, Moses found refuge and a new life. He married Zipporah, daughter of Jethro, a Midianite priest, and became a shepherd. For 40 years, he lived a quiet life in the desert, but God had greater plans. One day, while tending his flock near Mount Horeb, Moses encountered something extraordinary, a bush that burned but was not consumed. As Moses approached this miraculous sight, God spoke to him directly, revealing his divine name, YHWH, I am who I am. God commissioned Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egyptian bondage. Despite his initial reluctance and feelings of inadequacy, Moses accepted this divine calling, armed with God's promise of presence and power. Returning to Egypt with his brother Aaron as his spokesman, Moses confronted Pharaoh, demanding the release of the Israelites. When Pharaoh refused, God demonstrated his power through 10 devastating plagues: water turning to blood, frogs, lice, flies, livestock disease, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and finally, the death of the firstborn. The final plague led to the institution of Passover as the Israelites marked their doorposts with lamb's blood, ensuring their firstborn would be passed over by the angel of death. This event became a pivotal moment in Jewish history, commemorated to this day. Finally, Pharaoh relented, and the Exodus began. Moses led approximately 2 million Israelites out of Egypt, but their journey was far from over. When Pharaoh changed his mind and pursued them with his army, the Israelites found themselves trapped between the Egyptian forces and the Red Sea. In one of the most dramatic demonstrations of God's power, Moses stretched out his staff, and the Red Sea parted, creating a dry path through the waters. The Israelites crossed safely, but when the Egyptians attempted to follow, the waters crashed back together, destroying Pharaoh's army. The journey through the wilderness tested both Moses and the Israelites. Despite God's provision of manna from heaven and water from rocks, the people frequently complained and rebelled. At Mount Sinai, Moses received the 10 Commandments and detailed laws for the nation, establishing the covenant between God and Israel. Moses' leadership faced numerous challenges: the golden calf incident, rebellions, and the people's lack of faith to enter the promised land, resulting in 40 years of wilderness wandering. Through it all, Moses remained faithful to his calling, though his own moment of disobedience, striking the rock instead of speaking to it, prevented him from entering the promised land. At the age of 120, Moses climbed Mount Nebo, where God showed him the promised land. There, this great leader died, having fulfilled his divine mission of delivering Israel from slavery and establishing them as God's covenant people. Moses' legacy extends far beyond his lifetime. He was more than a leader. He was a prophet, lawgiver, and mediator between God and his people. The Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, traditionally attributed to Moses, continues to guide millions of believers today. His story teaches us profound lessons about faith, leadership, and God's faithfulness. Despite his initial reluctance and personal struggles, Moses' willingness to be used by God changed the course of history. His life demonstrates that God often chooses unlikely individuals to accomplish his purposes, working through human weakness to display his strength. Moses' journey from a hidden baby in a basket to the leader of God's people reminds us that our circumstances don't determine our destiny. God does. His story continues to inspire people of faith to trust in God's guidance, stand against injustice, and lead with humility and courage. The impact of Moses' life echoes through the ages, referenced throughout the Bible, and revered in multiple faith traditions. His example of intimate fellowship with God, where he spoke with the Lord face to face as a man speaks with his friend, sets a pattern for our own relationship with God. You are awesome. Like and share so others can be awesome too. Thank you for watching God's Bible Bread Devotionals.